This is a picture of a diagram of the Old Testament temple, or the New Testament, the temple in Jerusalem. This is how I've come to view us as human beings. That as relational beings, we are a temple. We're told our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit in the New Testament. And as relational beings, you have different courts in our lives. You have the outer court. It says the women's hall here. That was in the temple, that was where women and Gentile believers could come. They couldn't go any further than that. So lots more people could be in the outer court. In our lives, we have some people that we're in relationship at a distance. We still are in relationship with them, but they're not real close. As you go in further, fewer people can go into that court. And in our lives, as you come in closer, there's fewer people in that. Then you come up into the holy place in here. And then you have the Holy of Holies. In the Holy of Holies, only one man was allowed into the Holy of Holies. If anybody other than the high priest ever went into the Holy of Holies, God said, I will strike him dead. He said, if the high priest goes in the Holy of Holies any other day other than the Day of Atonement, which I forgot to look on the calendar, that's September, October, beginning of time on the Jewish calendar. Right around this time is when Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. If the high priest went in there any other day, God said, I'll strike him dead. He said, if the high priest goes in the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement with any sin in his life, guess what's going to happen? God's going to strike him dead. And if I'm reading Leviticus in my devotions, and I read when God gave him the outfit on out. And if that tinkling stops for very long, tug a little bit. And if nothing pulls back, they go start pulling it out because God struck him dead. And if you go in there and pick up his body, God's going to strike you dead. So just pull the rope. It seems like God is saying there's something really special about what's in the Holy of Holies. We know in the Holy of Holies, the Ark of the Covenant was in there. In the Ark of the Covenant, we have the tablets of the testimony, the 10 Commandments in there. We have a jar of manna, reminding of God's provision miraculously for 40 years in the wilderness. We have Aaron's staff that budded, showing that God had selected him as the high priest. It was the most holy place in the nation. And that's where one human and God met. I believe in our lives that the Holy of Holies has a similar value. And in our Holy of Holies, the most valuable, the most holy thing in our lives is kept. I believe that's the image of God in our life. That in the core of who we are, the Holy of Holies is in there. And it is to be protected. It is the place where only one human and God meet. Anybody else that's allowed into your Holy of Holies becomes competition with God and violates the first commandment. Now, many Christians mistakenly think that allowing your spouse into the Holy of Holies, allowing them to speak to your fundamental value and worth, somehow honors God. I would submit to you that it doesn't. Because more important than your marriage is your relationship with God himself. And that if you allow your spouse to speak to your fundamental value and worth, you allow them to do what only God has the right to do. And what often will happen is they'll do what we humans do when we're given a whole lot of power. We'll use it to our own advantage. And if you allow your spouse in there, you need to kick them out. The Holy of Holies in the temple was sectioned off by a curtain. You read when Jesus died, that curtain was torn from top to bottom. In this image of the temple that I envision, there isn't a curtain separating the Holy of Holies from the rest. There's a vault door. Or better yet, a picture that I uniquely have, probably nobody else has. I retired out of Great Falls, Montana It's a nuclear missile base throughout the country of Montana. The state of Montana, we have silos out there. And as a chaplain, I go visit all the people out there. And I got to go down, way down underneath to the capsule where missileers sit all the time down there. And that capsule that they're in is designed to withstand a nuclear blast at the surface, so that they can launch, if needed be, even if a nuclear blast happens. That door is about, if I remember right, it's something like 7 tons. And it's an incredible feat of engineering because you can close it with one finger. Counterweighting and everything, it's incredible. That's the picture of what I see on the Holy of Holies in our lives. When that vault door is closed, you can't push it in. A nuclear blast won't push it in. You can open it from the inside. You can push it out. In fact, no human being has the power to force their way into your Holy of Holies. The only way they can come in is for you to open it up and let them come in. And I would suggest to you that you need to keep that closed when you're in there meeting with God. That your spouse should be in the holy place, uniquely. But that Holy of Holies is reserved for one human and God. That nobody speaks to your fundamental value and worth except for your Creator who put that value there.